The day I paid off his debt, my husband filed for divorce from a Dubai hotel with client support girl in my bathrobe. So I took my accountant friend's advice, mapped every lie he told, and sent the financial trail straight to the IRS. And his job, I was standing in the lobby of the Wells Fargo branch in Mesa, Arizona, holding a receipt that still smelled like printer ink, when my phone buzzed with a PDF titled Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. I froze. My hands actually shook. I had just finished paying off the last chunk of my husband Ethan's emergency business debt, the same debt he said was crushing him, the same debt that had pushed us into scraping by for months. I'd emptied my savings and even sold my late dad's guitar to help him. But there it was, divorce papers, sent at 9:14 a.m. and right under the timestamp. Sent from Four Seasons Dubai. At first I thought it was spam. A mistake, some glitch. But then my friend Tara texted me a screenshot of an Instagram story she thought I needed to see, like right now before you pass out. It was Ethan, in my gray bathrobe, bare chest. Hotel balcony with skyscrapers behind him. And leaning into him was that same woman who'd been texting him for months as client support, the one he insisted was helping him restructure his loans, the one who always messaged late at night. She was holding his face with her manicured hand, smirking at the camera. The caption said, "Vacationing with my investment winking face wife one, thanks for warming him up." My vision went blurry. The kind of blurry where you forget to breathe. I stumbled outside into the heat and sat on the curb. The divorce papers were still open on my phone. He'd digitally signed them 2 days earlier, while telling me he was exhausted from driving Uber all night in my car. The same car he borrowed. So often I'd started taking the bus to my job at the clinic. I reread the line that punched me in the chest harder than anything else. "This marriage has run its course. Some people are stepping stones, and you are one. I'm moving on." He'd written that in the comments box at the end, like the smug coward he was. My lungs hurt. My head throbbed. But the hits weren't done. Because by noon, screenshots of the woman's post had made their way to someone at my job, and that someone thought it was hilarious enough to drop into the staff group chat. "Damn girl," one coworker wrote, "he really in Dubai." Another added a laughing emoji. Someone else posted, "Wife one is wild." I locked myself in the restroom and cried until my face swelled up. I kept thinking about all the nights I stayed up helping him apply for debt relief programs. All the weekends he said he was delivering food to make ends meet. All the times he told me, "You're the only one who believes in me." I didn't know whether to scream or curl up. By the time my shift ended, everyone seemed to know. Eyes followed me out of the building. I heard 2 techs whisper, "She's the stepping stone wife." I sat in my car, the car I'd worked 2 jobs to buy, feeling my whole body vibrate with humiliation and rage. And that's when I remembered what my accountant friend Jay had told me months earlier when he jokingly asked if Ethan was scamming me. "If you ever need to protect yourself," Jay said, "keep a financial trail. Every transfer, every loan, every business expense. Print it out someday, you'll know when." Back then, I laughed. I said Ethan wasn't like that. But now I drove straight home, opened my laptop, logged into our shared accounts, and my jaw dropped as the numbers lined up into a shape I should have seen earlier. A shape that made everything suddenly make sense. Why he always needed my car, why he kept changing passwords, why client support had such high transaction amounts assigned to her name. My stomach turned. My skin went cold. I printed every page, stapled them into a thick stack, slipped them into a manila envelope. And the next morning, I mailed it anonymously too, before everything collapsed, before Dubai, before the robe and the screenshots and the humiliation at work. My life with Ethan looked normal. Not perfect, not glamorous, but steady enough that I convinced myself it was love. We met 4 years ago at a small coffee shop in Tempe, Arizona, where he was working on what he called his startup pitch deck. He had that intense eye contact that makes you feel chosen. He talked fast, dreamed big, and kept calling me the most grounded person he'd ever met. At the time, I'd just lost my dad and I was desperate for anything that felt like direction. Ethan walked into my life at the exact moment I was too vulnerable to question anything. The first year was sweet in a way that now makes me sick to think about. He'd show up to my apartment with takeout and silly notes. He remembered every small detail. Favorite snack, favorite show, the exact way I liked my coffee. And he talked a lot about building a future where he'd finally make it. He made it sound like we were partners in some mission. But even then, the red flags were there. They were just small enough that I could fold them into excuses. He constantly had business opportunities that never materialized. He borrowed tiny amounts of money here and there, just until Friday. He said he was dealing with student loans, old medical debt, some credit card mess from before we met. Always temporary, always just need to get over this hump. And every time I asked questions, he'd act wounded. "I thought you believed in me," he'd say, and I'd drop it because I didn't want to be the unsupportive girlfriend. We got married 2 years later at the courthouse. Simple, cheap. He said he wanted to save the big wedding for when we're rich. That should have been another red flag, but I was just happy to feel wanted. The debt talk started 3 months after the wedding. He sat on the couch, head in his hands, saying his business partner screwed him and that he was in deeper than I realized. He cried actual tears, and I held him because I thought that's what a wife is supposed to do. He said he needed help paying off one high-interest loan before it spiraled. I didn't even hesitate. I took money out of my emergency fund, and once I crossed that line, it was like he sensed it, because then came the car. He said Uber driving could help him pull his weight, but that he needed a reliable car. Mine. He convinced me it was practical, that I shouldn't drive so much anyway because the clinic isn't that far from your bus route. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself this is what partnership looks like. Then came the client support messages. He said he was working with a financial consultant who specialized in debt restructuring. Her messages always popped up at weird hours, always asking for updates, always sounding too personal. When I questioned it, he laughed. "It's literally customer service," he said. "You're being paranoid." But the biggest shift came 6 months ago when he suddenly became obsessed with passwords, changing them, updating them. "Security reasons," he said. I believed him, or maybe I wanted to believe him. Meanwhile, I was drowning at work. We were understaffed. I was picking up extra shifts just to keep our bills steady. And he always had a new excuse for why his money wasn't coming in yet. Slow payouts, delayed gigs, a bad investment, a stolen phone, a locked account, a glitchy app. At one point, he said his entire Venmo history got wiped. Looking back, it's so obvious. He was training me to accept chaos as normal, but I kept pushing on because I thought marriages went through hard seasons. I thought if I just worked harder, supported him more, we'd make it through. I didn't know the hard season was just him draining me dry. And I definitely didn't know that the woman labeled client support had been in his life long before the debt story even started. When I found out who she really was, everything else locked into place like a puzzle from hell. The weeks leading up to the Dubai reveal felt like someone slowly tightening a belt around my ribs. Nothing dramatic enough to scream run, but enough little things that my body kept whispering, "Something's off," while my brain kept insisting, "You're overthinking." It started with the mail. One afternoon, a letter from a loan company showed up addressed to Ethan, but with my last name typed under his. I opened it without thinking. Married people do that, right? It listed an overdue balance for an amount I didn't recognize and a payment schedule that definitely didn't match anything he'd told me. When I showed it to him, he snatched it so hard the paper bent. He snapped, "You can't open my financial mail. It's illegal." I remember standing there stunned, holding the torn envelope. Illegal, we were married. Everything in my life felt entangled with his. But he kept glaring until I apologized. I still hate myself for that. Then came the late-night shifts. He'd leave around 9 p.m. to go online for Uber. Some nights he wouldn't come back until dawn. At first I stayed awake, waiting to hear the car pull in. Eventually exhaustion won and I started leaving the porch light on, pretending it meant something. He always had an excuse ready before I even asked. Surge pricing. Flat tire. A rider threw up in the backseat. Some guy threatened him. One night he said he picked up a group headed to Scottsdale and they invited him out for a drink. I asked why he smelled like cologne when he came home. He said he'd spilled someone's perfume sample on himself. I actually nodded like that made sense. The more stressed he looked, the more I carried. Rent, utilities, groceries, insurance. My entire paycheck was getting swallowed. When I gently asked if he could cover even one bill that month, he looked at me like I'd betrayed him. "I'm killing myself out there," he said. You don't see what I'm doing for us. We started fighting about everything. Little things. Big things, things that didn't matter. He'd accuse me of being ungrateful, ungiving, selfish. He'd cry and say I didn't understand pressure. Some nights he'd slam doors until the neighbors peeked out their windows. But the worst escalation came from somewhere I never expected. My job. Someone at the clinic found Ethan's social media, mostly inspirational quotes and recycled hustle posts. But there were enough photos of us that people started making comments. Nothing mean at first, just teasing about his entrepreneur grind, asking if I was funding his dreams. I laughed it off. Then, 2 months before Dubai, someone forwarded me a screenshot from a dating app. A male text said, "Isn't this your husband?" It was, same bio picture, different name, different age, single. I showed it to Ethan, and he blew up so aggressively I backed into the kitchen counter. He grabbed the phone out of my hand and said it was an old account he forgot to delete. But the app showed it had been active that week. I pointed that out and he went dead silent. Then he muttered, "You don't trust me. You're destroying this marriage," and stormed out. The next day he acted like nothing happened, made coffee, kissed my forehead, asked about my shift schedule. I lived in a constant state of confusion, walking on eggshells, second-guessing myself, trying to keep peace in a house that didn't have real peace anymore. And right in the middle of that chaos, one massive shift happened. The client support messages changed tone. She started calling him E instead of Ethan. She sent emojis, hearts, smirks, winks. She asked if he was free tonight. She sent a picture of wine glasses and said, "Thinking of you." When I questioned it, he grabbed my phone, deleted the thread, and said she was just being flirty. It's her personality. She talks to all her clients like that. Something inside me twisted. Something old, soft, and trusting finally cracked. Because the next morning, when he said he needed my car again to make up for slow Uber hours, his shirt smelled like a woman's shampoo I didn't own. And I remember thinking, if this keeps going, something is going to snap. Either him or me. I just didn't know yet how deep the lies really went, or how much darker everything was about to get. The night everything finally blew open didn't start dramatic. It was a boring Wednesday in Mesa, still hot even after sunset. I'd gotten home late from the clinic, exhausted, starving, and replaying the day in my head. Ethan wasn't there, again, and my car was gone again. He'd texted earlier saying he had a big night of Uber rides. I microwaved leftover pasta and sat at the kitchen table scrolling mindlessly. I wasn't looking for anything. I was beyond suspicion at that point, just numb, just trying to get through another evening alone in my own marriage. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize, no message, just a photo, a screenshot, of my bank account. It showed a transfer, one I never made, moving money from my checking into a digital wallet I'd never heard of. The amount wasn't devastating, but it was large enough that I froze. I stared at it for a full 30 seconds thinking maybe it was fake. A scam. A prank. Then another image came through. A receipt showing the same digital wallet funding a luxury hotel reservation in Scottsdale 2 nights earlier. A reservation for 2 people. Under a woman's name I had never heard in my life. Until the caption underneath hit me like a punch. "He said you wouldn't notice, thought you should." My stomach dropped. Not like fear, like the floor beneath me gave out. I texted back immediately, "Who is this?" No reply. Instead, another screenshot came through. This one was a chat log between Ethan and the same woman. And in the messages, Ethan was bragging about how easy it was to move money out of our household account because she never checks anything, she trusts too much. Then the message that made my vision blur. "She thinks I'm drowning in debt. I told her the more desperate I looked, the more she'd pay." My hands shook violently. I felt hot and cold at the same time. I didn't know whether to scream or throw up. I typed again, "Who are you? Why are you sending me this?" This time she responded, "Call me whatever you want. I'm the one he's been seeing, and trust me, I'm not the only one." I swear I stopped breathing. Then she added, "He told me you were basically his bank, that he was using you to fund his startup and his travel. He said once he was back on his feet, he'd move on from you officially." Move on from me? Officially, she wasn't done. "He said you were weak. That you'd never leave because you need him more than he needs you." He laughed about it. I felt something dark ignite inside me. Not sadness, not fear, something harder, something cold. I asked her why she was sending all this. And her answer was the first twist that flipped my entire world upside down. Because he did the same thing to me. She said she believed all his stories, the debt, the stress, the startup grinding. She'd even given him money at one point. She said he love-bombed her, future-faked her, then drained her dry before disappearing. She found out about me only when she dug through his socials and saw posts he forgot to hide. She confronted him. He told her she was just practice. Practice. That word made my throat close. She said she was done with him. She didn't want revenge. She wanted me to wake up before he destroyed more people. Then came the final bomb. There's another woman, not me, not you. Someone he's been with longer than both of us. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, hands numb. And before I could respond, she sent one last message. Ask him about client support. It's not what you think. I sat alone in the dim kitchen, the fridge humming behind me, my whole life rearranging itself in real time. And that night, for the first time, I realized Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was running a pattern, a practiced, intentional, financial predatory pattern. And client support. She wasn't his consultant. She was something far worse. The morning after the screenshots, I woke up feeling like someone had poured concrete into my chest. Everything hurt. My eyes, my head, my pride. I barely slept. Every time I drifted off, I'd see those messages again. Ethan laughing about using me, calling me weak, calling the other woman practice, bragging about how easy it was to drain my accounts. By sunrise, something in me had hardened. The shock was gone. The grief, too. What was left was a cold, steady clarity I didn't recognize but trusted instantly. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of printed financial records I'd pulled the night before. I'd stapled them into sections. Withdrawals, transfers, new credit lines, cash deposits that didn't come from me, and a long list of business expenses that, now that I knew, looked more like dates, hotel rooms, and investments into other women. And at the top of everything, transactions tied to something labeled CS Holdings, client support, but it wasn't a company. A quick online search showed it was a fake business profile linked to a personal account, hers. The woman pretending to be his financial advisor. The woman in Dubai. The woman wearing my robe. I knew what I had to do next. Not emotionally. Emotionally, I wanted to torch everything. But practically, legally, strategically, that's when Jay, my accountant friend, came to mind. The one who once told me to keep records just in case. I'd brushed him off back then. But now I opened our old text thread and typed, "Hypothetically, what would someone need to expose financial fraud?" He responded in under a minute. "Hypothetically, a paper trail, dates, transfers, accounts. Proof the other party benefited from deception." I stared at the pile of papers in front of me. I had all of it. I texted him again, this time dropping the hypothetical. He called immediately. I told him everything, no sugarcoating, no tears, just the facts like I was reading a police report. Jay didn't interrupt, not once. When I finished, there was a long pause then. "Okay," he said. "Then you're going to ruin him, and you're going to do it clean." He walked me through everything step by step, his voice steady like this wasn't personal at all to him, but deeply personal to me. We set rules. Do not confront Ethan yet. Confrontation ruins evidence. Let him think I'm still clueless and broken. Gather every document quietly. Bank statements, credit card bills, Uber trip logs, location history, text backups, emails, anything linking him to the withdrawals and the fake company. Make digital and physical copies. One set for me, one to send anonymously. Identify every institution he'd lied to. There were more than I expected. Find out where he actually was when he said he was driving. Jay said this part was crucial. So I dug hard, and what I found shifted the ground again. Ethan hadn't been driving Uber most nights. The trip logs showed a fraction of what he claimed. Half the time the app wasn't even active. And on the nights he said he worked late, the car GPS showed him parked at the same apartment complex in Scottsdale from those earlier photos. The patterns were obvious now, so obvious I couldn't believe I missed them before. And while he was busy living out his double and triple lives, I was building something he'd never see coming. A map. A full, clear, time-stamped financial trail of every lie he'd told, every dollar he stole, every fraud he committed using my accounts, every place he'd taken those women using my car and my money. But it wasn't just for me. Jay helped me sort the documents into color-coded packets. Red for the bank's fraud department, blue for the IRS tip line, green for the Arizona Attorney General's Consumer Fraud Division, yellow for Uber corporate compliance, white for his employer. Yes, he had a second job he hid from me. And then, at the bottom of the stack, Jay placed one last envelope. A black one. For her, he said. Client support. I asked what was inside. He said, enough truth to light her life on fire. My heart pounded. Then he looked at me and said something I'll never forget. You don't need to punish him emotionally. You need to suffocate the life he built on your back. So the next morning, I sat down at my desk, turned on the printer, and began assembling the trail. And when I sealed the first anonymous envelope, I realized something. This wasn't revenge yet. This was the setup. The real hit, the real twist was still coming. 2 days into my silent gathering mission, I thought I'd seen the worst of Ethan. I thought the lies, the cheating, the Dubai stunt, the stolen money, the fake debt, the stepping stone comment, surely that was rock bottom. I was wrong. The real bottom had a basement, and I tripped straight into it on a random Thursday afternoon. It started with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something in me, maybe instinct, maybe dumb curiosity, made me swipe to answer. A woman's voice said, "Is this Ethan's wife?" My pulse jumped. "Who's calling?" She hesitated, then said, "You don't know me, but I need to talk to you about him. It's urgent." My stomach tightened. I asked her to explain. What she said next made the room tilt. "I'm his sister, and you need to know he's lying to all of us." I didn't know Ethan even had a sister. He always said he was an only child. Said he grew up without siblings, without relatives who cared. Said he only had me. She told me her name was Rachel, she lived in Tucson, and she hadn't heard from Ethan in almost a year, until he called her out of nowhere asking for money. He said he was drowning, said his wife was emotionally abusive and controlling, said he was trapped in a dead marriage and needed her to help him escape. I almost laughed. I actually felt the sound rise in my throat like a cough. But she wasn't done. She said Ethan didn't just scam women. He scammed family. He'd been lying to his own mother about being terminally ill to get money out of her. He'd told cousins he was being stalked and needed security cameras. He'd told an uncle he was starting a tech company and just needed one more loan to secure the patent. He'd even told Rachel he was afraid I'd take everything if he left me, so he needed her to loan him money to set up alternative accounts. Then she dropped the actual twist. He asked me to open a bank account in my name that he could temporarily use to hide assets from you. I went cold. That account wasn't theoretical. It already existed. She said he used her identity last year, without her full consent, to create a secondary account he controlled. And that recently, she got an alert about suspicious activity, which is why she was calling me now. She thought I should know. She thought maybe I'd help her make him stop. I asked her to send me screenshots. She did. And there it was. My money transferred into an account under another woman's name but controlled by Ethan. That wasn't the twist yet. The twist came when she sent the rest. Hidden among the transfers was a folder, photos, scanned forms, screenshots, that made everything click into place in a way that made my blood run ice cold. Ethan hadn't been cheating with just random women. He had been recruiting them for what looked painfully close to a small-scale financial coercion ring, not legal enough to be obvious, not organized enough to look like a scheme, but consistent enough to be intentional. He had a pattern. Identify financially stable women, love bomb, trauma bond, fake debt drain, accounts move on before they wised up, but the twist wasn't that he scammed multiple women. I already suspected that. The twist was that the woman in Dubai, the client support woman, wasn't just cheating with him. She was working with him, not a victim, not a consultant, not an affair partner. A partner in the entire scheme, a co-conspirator. Her account wasn't a hiding place. It was a funnel. A funnel that showed not just my money but transactions from other women. Multiple names, multiple deposits, multiple drained accounts. And Ethan had actually typed in one of his messages to her, "Once the Dubai deal is done, we cut her out. She's maxed. Time to move to the next one." Her, meaning me. Meaning I wasn't the first. Meaning I wasn't even special. Meaning they'd already planned the exact moment they'd dump me. And that's when I realized my revenge plan wasn't just about a cheating husband anymore. This was a criminal conspiracy. And the envelope I mailed anonymously, it wasn't going to just ruin his life. It was going to blow the lid off both of theirs. Rachel's screenshots kept replaying in my head like a video I couldn't pause. Every transfer, every fake debt, every woman's name listed like some sick roster. I felt nauseous, angry, hollow. But none of it compared to what happened the night Ethan finally came home early. It was 4 days after the anonymous envelopes went out. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll TikTok while actually backing up every remaining file on our shared laptop. The front door opened at 8:17 p.m., hours earlier than his usual Uber shifts. He walked in casually, humming. That alone put me on edge. Ethan only hummed when he was either high on himself or lying, or both. "Hey babe," he said, like Dubai hadn't happened, like I hadn't seen the robe photo, like he hadn't sent me divorce papers before I even knew we were divorcing. He kissed the air in my direction, then tossed my car keys on the counter. "Good news," he said. "We're almost out of the woods." I stared at him. "What woods, Ethan?" He smirked at me, an actual smirk, and sat across from me like he'd been waiting for this moment. "You've been really patient with me. I know I've had to make choices you didn't understand." I didn't answer. I just watched him. He leaned back, laced his fingers behind his head, and said the sentence that froze my blood. "You don't get it. You've always had stability. I've never had that luxury. I had to build mine." He said it like he was proud. Then he told me the truth, not like a confession but like a lecture, like he thought I should admire him. He said women with savings were predictable, easy to guide, easy to comfort, easy to motivate. He said most women want to feel needed, and if he made himself a project, they'd pour themselves into fixing him. "I learned that a long time ago," he said, shrugging. "People help you more when you look broken." My stomach churned. He told me he never cared about the debts, not because he didn't have them, but because they weren't his problem. They were strategic pressure points. He told me he didn't pick women at random. He picked women who were smart enough to earn but soft enough to mold. Then he smiled like it was all just smart business and said, "You were perfect for the early phase. Reliable, empathetic, overworked. You didn't ask a lot of questions, that made things easy." Easy. He called my trust easy. I felt something inside me rip. I asked him why he married me. He laughed with actual amusement. "Stability. Marriage makes women more willing to invest, and it opens doors financially. You'd be amazed what companies will approve when there's a spouse on record." He kept talking, unaware that he was peeling himself open into something monstrous. He said the woman in Dubai, client support, wasn't just a partner, she was someone who understood the hustle. Someone who didn't get sentimental, someone sharper. "She gets the long-term vision," he said, tapping his temple. "She thinks like me." My skin went numb. This wasn't insecurity. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a wounded man making bad choices. This was a man who had carefully built a system around manipulating women emotionally and financially, then discarding them when they were drained. A man who saw compassion as weakness. A man who saw me, my love, my sacrifice, my loyalty, as resources to exploit, not qualities to cherish. His voice dropped into something colder. "Some people are stepping stones, that's just life. No hard feelings." He'd said it in the divorce papers. Now he was saying it to my face, like it was a fact, like I was furniture he'd outgrown. Then came the final blow. He said Dubai wasn't a celebration of leaving me. It was a celebration of scaling up. Scaling up. Like my life, my money, my heartbreak were just numbers on a chart. And as he talked, I felt something steady, sharp, and terrifyingly calm settle inside me. Because for the first time, I understood him fully. Not as my husband, not as a cheater, not as a liar, but as a predator with a motive. And I finally knew exactly how to destroy him. The night Ethan revealed who he truly was, he went to bed smug, like he'd just given a TED talk about manipulation. He actually kissed my forehead before heading down the hallway, humming again, assuming I was too stunned to act. He had no idea that every envelope was already out. He had no idea that the ground beneath him had already been rigged. He had no idea that while he was bragging, I was memorizing every word, every admission, every hint of intent, and saving it all on a recording tucked under a throw pillow. By the next morning, the consequences began to hit. It started with a phone call from his employer, the job he hid from me. He was in the kitchen rummaging through the fridge when the call came in. I watched him answer casually, and then freeze, face draining of color. They were temporarily suspending, him pending an investigation into financial irregularities and misuse of company-issued accounts. He glared at me like it was my fault. He had no idea the white envelope had landed on his boss's desk the day before. An hour later, another call, this time from the bank. They flagged fraudulent transfers and locked down the accounts, all accounts associated with him. He slammed his phone on the counter, yelling about bureaucratic idiots and accusing the bank of sabotaging him. Then he turned toward me. "What did you do?" I didn't flinch. "I protected myself." That's when he snapped. He got close, jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grind. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my plans?" "Yeah," I said. "I ended them." He stormed out of the apartment. Good, I needed him gone. Because 30 minutes later, 2 Uber corporate compliance reps showed up. They asked for Ethan. I told them he wasn't home. They handed me paperwork, confirmation that his account had been frozen pending investigation into fraudulent driver activity and using non-consented vehicle ownership. He'd used my car for Uber under his name without listing me as an owner or driver. That's a big corporate no. Another envelope. Another fuse lit. But the best part came 2 days later, a call from the Arizona Attorney General's office. They needed Ethan to contact their investigators regarding possible consumer fraud violations. I thanked them. Calmly, maybe too calmly. Ethan finally blew up on the 4th day when he walked in the door with a crumpled eviction notice from the Scottsdale apartment complex he secretly used for his other women. They'd received a packet, the blue one, linking him to illegal subletting, identity misuse, and unpaid balances. The manager had called the police. That apartment was gone. His job was gone. His access to bank accounts was gone. His side hustle income was gone. His co-conspirator's fake business profile had been flagged and suspended. Everything collapsed exactly the way Jay and I mapped it. Then came the final crack. A federal tax notice addressed to Ethan and to CS Holdings. The IRS had received the green packet. He stared at the letter, whispering, "This can't be happening." "It is," I said. He looked at me with something I'd never seen on him before. Not anger, not pride, not manipulation. Fear, he begged, actually begged. He said we could rebuild. We just needed to reset. He said he was sorry, said he was confused, said he didn't mean what he said that night. I stared at him the way you'd stare at a stranger who tried to mug you. Then I handed him my own envelope. The divorce papers. Signed, final, filed. He was stunned. "You're leaving me?" "I'm done being your stepping stone," I said. "Go climb something else." He tried one last time, the charm, the tears, the frantic promises. None of it landed. He left that day with one suitcase and no car, no money, no job, no safety net, no Dubai partner. She blocked him once the IRS got involved, and nowhere to run his little empire. His entire life collapsed under the weight of his own lies. Mine didn't collapse. Mine reset. I moved to a small one-bedroom in Chandler. I bought a beat-up used car that's mine alone. I take long walks after work without checking my phone every 5 minutes. I sit in silence without feeling scared of what mood waits behind a door. I breathe like a real person again. Sometimes I think about what he called me, just a stepping stone. Funny thing about stepping stones, if you grind them down long enough, they turn into gravel. And gravel ruins engines.